with Layne about Training the Physique Athlete online course and a Q&A from the questions that we had from our stories. So Layne, can we start off with a little overview about the online course?
Sure. So guys, some of you know, some of you don't know, I have two courses that are available online with Clean Health. The first one is the Science of Nutrition, and the second one that we're just releasing is called Training the Physique Athlete. So basically, Training the Physique Athlete was designed as a course for people who are either looking to do contest prep themselves or who want to prepare competitors for competition. So if you're a coach and you want more education, you want to be evidence-based, my course, Training the Physique Athlete, will provide you a really good overview about how to go about that, how to deal with client interactions, how to incorporate data, look at that data, interpret that data to get your clients in the best position possible for their show.
Awesome. So guys, take advantage of Dr. Layne Norton's Ultimate Education Bundle, which does include Training the Physique Athlete and Science of Nutrition. So you can get this on sale via the link in our bio. These will be your tools for achieving the ultimate body composition results. So definitely jump on that with our EFE sale. All right, let's jump straight into our questions. So we have a few questions about the course, Training Physique Athlete. So the first one here is, does the course go through how to train male and female physique athletes of all divisions?
Yeah, so there is that information in the course. So a lot of the nutrition information is going to be similar from males to females. Now the absolute, obviously 55 kilo female is going to be dieting on different macronutrient breakdown than, a 100 kilo male who's doing bodybuilding. But that's just based off their differences in lean body mass. It's not that females have, so much different physiology that what works for a male won't work for a female. It's just that, males are generally bigger, and so they can consume more calories than females can and get lean. So as far as training goes, we do go through some of the differences in training with males and females. It's probably going to be different than a lot of people think. It's more divisionally dependent than anything. So for example, when men's physique, you can train your legs, but you don't really show your legs in men's physique. So if you're spending a bunch of time training your legs, you could be putting that time into body parts that are more conducive towards your sport. By the same token, if you're a female bikini athlete, you probably don't need to spend much time training your pectorals because it's not something that you're really judged on. Whereas, something like your glutes, your arms, your hamstrings, those are things that are much, much more important for the judging. So it does go into, this is what's important to emphasize for these different divisions in terms of training.
Yeah. The next question about the course is, will the course go through peak week methods?
Yes. So that we spend a whole section on peak week. So we cover fluid, sodium, training, cardio, pretty much everything you can think of in peak week. And we actually go really deep into not just peak week, but the other stuff you need to think about around the show in terms of, do you stay at the host hotel? Do you, how soon before the show should you get there? Even right down to show day and running through things to take with you that you might have never even thought about. So yeah, it goes very into depth and way more into depth than any other peak week module that I've ever seen.
Amazing. The next one about the course is, can I use the methods from this course on clients who aren't looking to compete but want to get in shape?
Yeah, that's a good question. I saw a few people right here in the live actually ask that. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying the questions, make sure to give some hearts and some likes. That helps with visibility. We appreciate that. So I would say if you're somebody who's not going to compete and you're not going to train people to compete, that the Science of Nutrition is probably a better bet for you. That being said, Training the Physique Athlete, the skills that you're going to learn there are still applicable, maybe without regards to the peak week information, but it's still applicable because the skills that you use to get somebody really, really lean are still the skills you're going to use to get somebody who's overweight to normal, but maybe with a few subtle differences. But that's why the science of nutrition is there, because that goes over a lot more in depth, like behavior modification, habits, that sort of thing, because those are more important for your non-competitors, whereas competitors are usually so detail-orientated, they don't have to be convinced of behaviors and habits. They just already are that way. So what I would say is if somebody wants to do gym pop stuff, do science of nutrition. If you're doing both, if you have people who are both gym pop and pre-contest prep, then I would definitely get the bundle, because you're going to get both of those things covered really well.
Yeah, amazing. So let's jump into a few questions that we got about nutrition. So what are your favorite diet techniques for physique athletes?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. So I am a pragmatist over everything else, meaning I don't care what somebody uses as long as it works. Now, that may sound like it means I'm very haphazard and everybody's on a completely different plan, but what typically works is going to be for most people, what works is going to be very similar. But for certain people, they might do better with just different programs. Now, what I will say is a lot of that's based on personal preference and just the individual. So everyone kind of wants to believe that they're like fundamentally physiologically different, that we're all just like these physiological unicorns that are so different from each other. And the reality is that most human beings, their genetics are almost identical. We're just, maybe like 0.5% different. So it's important to do individual and to look at the individual, but it's more about, okay, what are their individual goals, time frames, preferences, that sort of thing. As far as nutrition techniques, the fundamental way I start is, okay, we're looking at how much body fat do they need to lose? What period of time does that loss need to occur in? And once I know that, I can start back calculating in terms of, okay, that means we need to lose X amount of fat per unit time. And then I can take that and calculate, and I show everybody how to do this in the course. I can calculate approximately what kind of calorie deficit we're going to need on a daily basis. And then from there, I'm going to try and take the client, determine what I think their daily energy expenditure is. And once I know that, I subtract the calorie deficit from it, and I subtract how much of a deficit we need, and that's going to give us our starting basal calories. And then I allot a certain number of calories to protein, and then the remainder to carbohydrates and fats. So that's a really loaded question, so I have to give kind of the general answer, but that's kind of the general answer.
Awesome. So the next question is about gut health. Does gut health have an effect on fat loss?
Good question. So what we know about gut health is we know that people who are obese tend to have a different microflora, and becoming obese probably changes your gut microbiome. So here's where people get it wrong. And we're not sure yet, but people see that, okay, people who are obese have different gut microflora. That must mean that they have unhealthy guts, and that means that that's causing them to gain body fat. When in reality, the opposite is probably true. It's probably more so that becoming obese changes your physiology such that it makes your gut microflora less healthy. Additionally, most people who are obese don't eat a lot of fiber. Fiber is prebiotic, and it is actually the main fuel for the gut. So what's more likely is those two morbidities evolved in parallel, meaning those people who become obese typically don't eat a lot of fiber. When you don't eat a lot of fiber, that can lead to having unhealthy gut microbiota. So what I would say is that most of that can be rectified through just losing fat and consuming sufficient fiber. The one other thing I'll touch on real quick, because I see that people make this inference. They'll have GI pain or some kind of GI distress and say, oh, I must have an unhealthy gut microbiota. When in reality, the complete opposite could be true, because gut microbiota, when they are properly fueled, create gas. So if you're having gas after eating, don't automatically assume that your gut is unhealthy. That might actually indicate that your gut is healthy.
Awesome. Really good information there. The next one is about bulking. So how important is nutrition in regards to muscle building? So clean versus dirty bulk.
Okay. So I don't really like those terminologies because I think they give people a weird view of food. But
Yeah.
when I think of a clean bulk, I just think of something where, okay, we're going to try and put on as much lean body mass without excessive body fat gain. That is completely a function of, one, training hard and training appropriately, and two, being in a reasonable calorie surplus. So what people tend to do is they get really impatient with trying to gain muscle, and they end up increasing their calories, or they DGAF and they go crazy and just try to eat as much as possible, and they put on a lot of body fat, and they say, well, it's because I was eating these unclean foods. No, it's because you were in 1,000 calorie surplus per day. So what I would recommend to people is, if you don't want to gain excess body fat, really try to maintain a reasonable calorie surplus and just be patient. Like, if you're being patient and you're going slowly, you're going to gain less body fat. You're also going to gain weight slower, so it's going to feel like you aren't making as much progress. But when it comes to getting, in the case of getting ready for a show or dieting down, you'll have less fat to strip off, which is useful. There is one study that kind of looked at this, and they looked at either doing a 20% calorie surplus, 40% calorie surplus, or 60% calorie surplus, and what happened to fat mass and muscle mass. And what they found was, with the 20% calorie surplus, people didn't really gain much body fat, and the 20% calorie surplus gained the same amount of lean body mass as the 40 and the 60. So what that seems to suggest is you can really only gain so much lean body mass per unit time, so you're probably better going about it conservatively.
Yeah. All right. So the next one is about creatine. So what is your opinion on creatine, and does it matter what time you take it?
Okay, great question. Well, I think creatine is probably, if not the most, one of the most safe, effective, and well-researched supplements on the market. So if you're somebody, if being stronger, performing better, increasing lean body mass are considerations for what you want to do, then there's probably no reason not to take creatine. And the reason I say that is there's really no downside. There's no evidence it's dangerous in any way. Now people say, well, it causes water retention. Creatine causes water retention inside the muscle cell. It doesn't suddenly make you retain a bunch of water subcutaneously. So in fact, there was actually just a recent study that came out, I think last month, that showed when they gave creatine, it did not change the ratio of intracellular to extracellular water. It just increased total water. So it just makes you look fuller, which is great because it means that your muscle cells are more volumized and you're probably more anabolic. So I think creatine is a great supplement. What I would say is it doesn't matter what time you take it, because the benefits of creatine are gleaned by saturating your muscle cells with phosphocreatine. And to do that, to saturate them, you can do that taking it any time of the day. So I think a lot of people have gotten in the habit of either taking it pre-workout or post-workout. And we used to say, well, you're more insulin sensitive, so it probably is better taking it around your workout. And now we know it doesn't matter when you take it. Just be consistent with taking it every day.
Awesome. So let's move on. We've got heaps of questions on reverse dieting. So I've picked a few to summarize.
Yeah.
The first one on reverse dieting is, how should a client reverse diet after a bodybuilding competition?
Well, again, there's really no one particular way to do it. I think the thing to realize about contest prep, and one thing a lot of competitors don't want to admit to themselves, is that body you got for contest is not sustainable, and you're just renting it. You have to give it back at the end. Now, you don't have to become fat, and you don't have to gain fat really fast. But if you try to stay shredded, it is going to significantly negatively impact your health. There's a lot of data on this now in regards to mood perturbation. They've done mood assessments for people who have been contest prep lean, and find, surprise, surprise, that they're basically psychopaths because it disturbs their mood so much.
Wow.
Further, loss of libido, sex drive typically goes right out the window, especially for males, seems to be a huge drop. In fact, every case study on natural bodybuilders that we have shows that by the end of a contest prep, they are hypogonadal, meaning they are clinically low testosterone-wise. So what I suggest for people is usually I try to I've changed what I used to do. I used to do it more conservatively. Now for competitors, usually what I'll do is I'll start them relatively aggressive for the first few weeks so they can put on a little bit of body fat. And so it's not, if you try to take a competitor and just have them consume just a little bit more calories compared to what they were having on prep, it's not likely they're going to be adherent because they've been deprived for so long. So I try to give them an amount of calories that's going to be something that they can hit, but not make them absolutely blow up, but add a healthy amount of body fat so that they feel better, their training gets better. And then once we reach that level, which is usually about gaining like, you know, probably around like 5% of their body weight, something like that, maybe a little bit less. Then we kind of level out and then start a slow reverse from there, which is usually kind of how I do it. I want to get them in a decent place first, and then we're going to start a slow reverse from there.
Yeah, well, that answers a few of the reverse dieting questions, but another one that we've got here, what is the reason behind coaches making a client reverse diet for a few weeks after fat loss and then returning back into a deficit afterwards?
There could be a lot of reasons for doing something like that. You know, a reverse diet for a few weeks could essentially kind of be like a diet break. But reverse dieting insofar as like what most people think of, which is trying to build your energy expenditure, build your metabolic rate, your endogenous metabolic rate by eating more over time, you're not really going to see much dividends in a few weeks. Now, it might be useful as a kind of psychological diet break so that you can, you know, eat a little bit more food, that sort of thing. But yeah, you're not gonna significantly change your resting metabolic rate in a few weeks. Now, I have done short sprinkled diet breaks / mini reverse diets for clients. I've even done it for myself. But yeah, I do those with the understanding that we're not focusing really on building metabolic rate. This is more of just a diet break.
Yeah. So the next one on reverse dieting is, what are the red flags or signals that you should immediately start a reverse diet?
Great question. So one, if you're starting to have some, like, seeing really practically negative effects on your life, you know, so if you're food focused all the time, if you are, you know, omitting, you know, if you're not a competitor, let's just say non-competition prep, if you're somebody who is avoiding family gatherings because you're worried about food, if you're somebody who, you know, finds that you have anxiety about food things, that's a pretty good indication that it's time to get out of a deficit and start kind of repairing your relationship with food, as well as if you're just hungry all the time. You know, if you're, and I mean physiologically hungry, not just like snacking or something like that, but you're physiologically hungry most of the day, then it might be time to go on a reverse diet. And or if you're somebody who you feel like you're very, very low in calories, it's being very difficult to adhere to, and you're still not seeing much progress, then that would be time as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's move on to some training related questions.
Sure.
The first one is, when should a client start prepping for a bikini comp, and what sort of training should they start off with?
Okay. Hey guys, hit us with some more hearts if you're liking this and help us out big time. Thank you. Yes. So it's going to be, you know, it's hard to give a specific answer to a general question. What I will say is, with regards to bikini competitors, so the first question was when to start dieting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to completely depend on how much fat you're comfortable losing per week, how much, you know, and how much you have to lose, right? So if you're somebody who has, you know, only 5 kilograms of fat to lose to be stage ready, you might be able to start later than somebody who's got, 15 kilograms of fat to lose. And some people prefer shorter, more aggressive diets. They find that easier than doing a long, protracted, slow diet. So that's also a consideration as well. Although I would argue that the slow one is probably going to help you retain more lean body mass. As far as training goes, pardon me. You're not putting me to sleep. It's just been a long day. So as far as training goes, I find that a lot with females, they really try to jump into competing too quickly, and they don't give themselves the time to build muscle. So I think one of the best things that they can do is, if you have it in your mind that you want to compete, give yourself a solid year of training for hypertrophy before you go compete, before you start a prep. A lot of women really want to jump right into it because it's going to motivate them to get on stage. And I understand that. But if you want to have success on stage, and I've had many female clients. I probably had, I would say, over 500 female competitors that I've coached in my life. And one of the common threads is they just want to compete constantly. They feel like they want to compete all the time because it's motivating, because they love the feel of that. But the sad matter is that if you're never taking time away from competition, if you're never spending phases where you're focusing on building muscle, and that also means eating in a surplus or at maintenance at least, then you're not going to go very far in the sport, because you need that time to build that requisite muscle mass for whatever division you're in. And even bikini, if you look at the girls who are winning bikini now in the IFBB, they are very muscular, even for bikini.
Yeah. And on that, what are some good or your favorite cardio methods for people that are prepping?
It's funny because I used to be very much against high intensity cardio and was all about low intensity cardio. And then I went to the other extreme and I was like, no, actually I was wrong. You should do all in high intensity, no steady state. And now I've kind of really come back to the middle ground. If you look at the research data, the idea that high intensity cardio provides you with this afterburn where you're burning all these calories afterwards, there is a little bit of that, but it's not a ton of calories. It's really not much difference. So I look at it as tools in a toolbox. So you have low intensity steady state and you have high intensity, usually in the form of intervals. If you are somebody who doesn't have much time in the day to dedicate to cardio, then perhaps doing a 10 to 15 minute HIIT session is a good idea for you. By the same token, some people, myself included, I hated HIIT sessions because I would have anxiety around doing the HIIT session because I know how hard it was. And it would significantly impact my recovery. Like if I did a HIIT session and tried to squat the next day, I would definitely notice an impact on my performance. So I think that you can do both and use both. What I would say is if you're going to do HIIT, I would try to space it away from and you're doing lower body HIIT, I would try to space it away from your leg training sessions to avoid as much negative interaction as possible. But yeah, if you're somebody who just doesn't mind going out and going for walks and you have the time to do it, and you would rather do that and listen to a podcast and that's relaxing for you, then that's a perfectly reasonable reason to do it as well. I think both are tools in the toolbox. And I will say what might make sense is to mix up your cardio modality, meaning we tend to get better mechanically at what we do. So if you run, for example, the first time you try to run, you're going to be really inefficient with it. You're actually going to burn probably more calories than an experienced runner burns, because an experienced runner knows how to run. Their body mechanics are more efficient with it, that sort of thing. So it might, I don't have any empirical evidence to support this, but it might be helpful to switch cardio modalities throughout prep just to give your body kind of a new stimulus.
All right, so the last one that we have prepared is all about compliance. So how do you keep a prep client compliant? So how do you help them stick to the plan?
Compliance is the science. That is where personal preference really comes into it, and I try to really listen to my clients. I don't coach much anymore, but our coaches that we've trained who work for us, we try to really emphasize personal preference, because even in a a competitor. Competitors usually don't have a ton of issues with compliance because they're usually very motivated individuals. But when they do, it's usually because you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Meaning, when competitors have trouble with compliance, it's typically the coach's fault, in my experience, unless it's just somebody who isn't a seasoned competitor and just kind of maybe it's just not for them, right? Like if you're doing your first prep and you just did it for fun and you find that you're having trouble with it, contest prep may not be for you unless you can kind of get better at that. If we're talking about a seasoned competitor who's used to contest prep and knows what they're in for, then I would say that's the coach's issue because you're trying to force a style of eating on them that they don't enjoy. So, for example, prep is hard enough. If you take somebody who, for example, they find that they feel they do best with a reduced carbohydrate approach, and you say, nope, this time we're doing low fat and we're doing really high carb, higher carb, high protein, that sort of thing, they may just not do well with it because they just don't enjoy it. Whereas some people may prefer higher carb, lower fat, and some people may prefer a more balanced approach. And if you look at the physiological data, there's no evidence that one of those approaches, if you're getting enough protein, that's the caveat. If you're getting enough protein, there's no evidence that high carb versus high fat makes any difference on fat loss. So what that says to me is it's really a personal preference and you can do what you like, which is actually great because it means you can tailor your plans towards what the individual client prefers.
Yeah. Awesome. So guys, that is all that we have time for today. Thank you so much, Layne, for having Clean Health here on your account, holding the live. So remember, guys, take advantage of our sale. You can get the Ultimate Education Bundle, which again includes Training the Physique Athlete and the Science of Nutrition via the link in our bio and his bio. Do you have any last words for us, Layne?
Nope, just going to say that Clean Health has been awesome to work with. Everybody, I've had nothing but positive feedback about the courses. I can honestly say that. I did see a lot of questions about how is this information different from the information in your books. And actually, most people who have taken the course have bought my books and have said that this is still was packed with information and very much worth it. So if you're a coach, I can't recommend this enough. I think it's great. And if you're just somebody who just wants to learn more, this is a hobby for you, but you take it serious, it could still be a really beneficial course. So I would really recommend it. And you guys have been great to work with. And we have a lot of exciting stuff in the future planned for sure.
Thanks, Layne. We all love you here. We love the content in these courses. They are amazing. So you guys need to get on that. If you want to rewatch this Q&A, you can head over to Layne's Instagram and we will repost once his is posted. Any other further questions, feel free to comment on the post and we'll try to get back to you. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for joining us.